Lip readers of Reddit, what's the weirdest thing you've seen actors extras talking about in the background of a scene? Not lip reading but something similar. Years ago before the movie Airplane came out, the writers of that movie made the Kentucky Fried Movie. In a scene called A Fistful of Yen, the Asian villain gives a speech that's not supposed to mean anything because it's being dubbed in subtitle to be something funny. My friend who is Korean said what the guy's actually saying is that he is apologizing to the Asian people for doing the role, but as an Asian actor it's hard to get acting parts in Hollywood and you sometimes have to take what you can get. I thought that was pretty wild. Most of the time the extras simply mouth their conversations. This way, the mic only picks up the lead actor's dialogue and the background noise is added in post-production. With this in mind, I've got a good one. Batman v Superman. I watched this at home with my family, and during the scene where Clark Kent meets Bruce Wayne for the first time, you can see two women and a man standing behind them facing each other, while Superman and Batfleck are bantering. I saw one of the women mouth something similar to "he's behind me." My guess was more or less confirmed when the other woman nodded her head and laughed, mouthing a clear yes, followed by "I know." I thought the interaction was kind of neat, since it's most likely the background actress acknowledging the fact that she's standing there with her back to Henry Cavill. I grabbed the remote to skip back to the start of the scene to confirm what I saw, and my father got pissed off and beat me up with a set of jumper cables. What the duck, man, this is not even the correct username. Lip reading is only 40-60% accurate at best. So even the most skilled among us can't really tell what people are saying without context. For instance, vacuum and duck, you look the same to lip reader. This is absolutely correct. Context is everything, and we take the context and make leaps of logic based on what keywords we do interpret. I've been 100% deaf for 43 years and everyone in my life is a hearing person that just talks at me. When things get serious, I make people write things down. It's also impossible to tell me long jokes unless you're really patient. I'm an extra on Vikings. One day we are filming a scene just before heading off to fight the English. As we are prepping for battle, we are slagging each other off. For example, "I hope you die. I'm gonna shag your missus. I'm going to ram my axe up your hole," etc., while trying to suppress the giggles. In the music video for a Sneak Bo song, youtube.com, one of the girls at 3.05 on the jet ski asks, "Are we filming yet?" I guess they decided no one would notice it, so just left it in. This doesn't have to do with lip reading, but if you watch the infamously bad The Room, in one scene at Johnny's birthday party toward the end of the movie, there's a woman having a conversation with no one. Like, standing there talking to the air, laughing at the jokes the air tells her. And when the drama starts to unfold between main characters, she even nudges the air and tells it to check out what's going on. The Room is kind of baffling in a number of ways. Like they have a chair positioned with its back to the TV, right in front of the TV. Blows my mind every time I see it. I know that in that 70s show, when they are doing a flashback of how they met Fez, and he tells them his real name, while the school bell is ringing so we can't hear him, he's just saying the names of the main actors. Similar to that, I've heard that in the SpongeBob episode where they discover the most horrific, offensive phrase which is never heard by the viewer as it is always obscured by sounds in the environment: egg, foghorns and garbage trucks. The voice actors still recorded the disgusting, vulgar, racist obscenities at the top of their lungs in the voices of their respective characters. This footage isn't surprisingly unreleased. Not a lip reading thing. But if you turn in the subtitles in The Godfather, there's a background scene in the kitchen where no voices are really intended to be discernible and all the women are talking about how much they love bread. It's hilarious. In a similar vein, if you turn on closed captioning for Disney's old Cinderella movie, there are words for some of the animal sounds. Specifically, when the bluebirds are waking her up at the beginning. Chirp chirp, wake her up. Chirp, I tried, chirp. Try again. Chirp. It would actually intersperse the word chirp in the conversation. Former background extra here. Those people aren't actually talking. They film the scene a few times with the background people talking so they can gather ambient sounds from the room. But when the dialogue is going on between actors, the background people are actually faking it. They are just moving their mouth and having a silent convo. People nod their head to make it seem like they are listening, but no one is saying a word. I know some background actors. They usually talk about fruits and vegetables. That's only when they are talking to you. They actually hold real conversations when filming. I liked Finding Dory. Watch the cop on the bridge when the truck is flying through the air. He lips holy duck. Not involving extras in a movie, but similar. A deaf woman was giving an assembly at my school while these two jokers were laughing to themselves and saying some incredibly awful jokes about her since she obviously couldn't hear them. Only being quiet so a teacher didn't hear them and punish them. They kind of forgot that the woman's lecture was about overcoming adversity and difficulty by learning how to lip read. Guess who got a week's worth of detention? As an former extra, we don't really talk about anything. Sometimes we literally goof around and speak gibberish to each other on purpose. A few times, we've actually gotten away with whispering the conversation we were talking about before they said action, and trying not to get caught. But most of the time, we are actually just pretending to talk. This doesn't quite answer the question. But my sister was a colonial girl in one of those America's Most Haunted shows on the Discovery Channel. And there were scenes of her hanging up dried herbs while the voiceover guy talked about whatever. They left the audio of my sister and her friend in, but very low. If you turn it up really loud, you can hear parts of her conversation. Specifically, I like Alien Ant Farm. Here is the video. Not a lip reader, but love watching extras and thinking about how awkward it must be to silently pretend they are having a conversation. I always try to imagine what their imaginary conversation is about. Sometimes one of them cracks up suddenly, or looks really surprised whilst nodding. I was watching him today and these people in the background of McLaren's pub, they looked like they were having the greatest time on their table. Gone are the days when extras were simply told to mumble carrots and peas over and over again. Unlike many people who are extras, I enjoy it. I think of it as getting paid a little bit to watch the craft of mover making up clothes. I always enjoyed taking the tour at Universal Studios. And I sort of look at being an extra as getting an opportunity to get off the tram and interact a tiny bit with a world I wish I was definitely a larger part of. I have been an extra many times. Because of that, when I watch movies and TV, I often find myself watching extras when I should be watching the main action of a scene. Like when the little girl gets smacked in the face with a wooden counter panel in the original Willy Wonka film. People don't often do stuff like what happened on Community, but they do sometimes overreact or stare directly into the camera. I don't know why I always look for that stuff, but I do. But if you are seeing something like that, it's probably because the filming of that scene took a long time to set up, or especially if it took a long time to shoot. People get bored, and they start to screw around. I'm going to duck your boy with a cold hot dog. My principal said that to some guy fixing a door, and I wasn't able to hear him since I was too far away. Source: I'm deaf, but got good hearing aids, so I was out of practice for a few years. Professional Hollywood extra here. We don't talk about nothing. At least we're not supposed to anyway. We're supposed to pantomime our conversations. But sometimes we hush talk here and there, and then the sound guy will tell the assistant director that our discreet talking is being picked up on the actors' microphones. We get yelled at a lot. My uncle was doing a commercial for Holiday Inn quite a few years back. Everyone is finally on set for a very quick rehearsal before the one actual shoot. Super easy. Quick. Cheap. My uncle rolled his food cart down the hall, knocked on the door, handed the food tray, and with a smile, "Go duck yourself." To which the director yelled, "Cut." My uncle looked at the director and said, "Cut?" To which the director said, "Yeah, I usually tell my actors we're doing a rehearsal so that they're relaxed and don't know they are being filmed. That way we can get almost And sometimes all of the scene filmed in one go. But I just told that guy to go duck himself. It'll be dubbed. Let the lip readers have a laugh. I'm not a lip reader, but I watch everything with captions on. Those captions capture a ton of hilarious things that you don't pick up just from watching. I think the whole 9 yards had one that just said farts. I always remember this one scene of Saved by the Bell where the cast was all working at the summer job at the beach. Well, one scene Zach was talking to someone at a table outside, and a woman in the background was looking like she was having an in-depth convo with a guy. But upon closer inspection, she was mouthing ABCs. She was going through the motions of having an awesome convo, but it was plain to see that she was saying the alphabet. The guy was nodding along as well. Not lip reading, but there's an old legend in Hollywood about a movie that took place in Africa. I am unsure of where it was actually shot, where an extra was asked to run into frame and deliver a message in his native tongue in a terribly urgent manner and then collapse in exhaustion. The legend claims that when the film was shown in the region where it supposedly took place, the crowd erupted in laughter at this point. It turns out that instead of delivering the plot relevant news in his dialogue, the extra simply said, "I'm not being paid enough for this." Obviously. Take this legend with a grain of salt. A few years ago, I was in a commercial for the Living History Museum I worked at, and I was supposed to be leading a ghost tour. But there would be no audio of my clip. I didn't know any of the ghost stories at the time. So I spent the whole time, about 15 takes, in costume, holding a lantern, telling the crowd the plot lines of various B-movies from the 50s 60s. The main kid actors got really into it. And I was just like, shit. I didn't know they would be so enthralled by teenagers from outer space. My dad was an extra in all of the Lord of the Rings Hobbit movies cause he had a sweet beard and long hair. At the time he was also completing his doctorate. In an extra scene, I think the one where Legolas and Gimli have a drinking contest, he's in the background and very clearly talking about his thesis with someone because he looks very serious and slightly manic. Played a part in a movie once, lip-read 2 other actors on the other side of the room behind a glass partition. They were talking about a fault in the AE-35 unit and how likely it was that they could handle operations in the case that it was attributable to computer error. It was at that point I realized they were jeopardizing the scene and decided to do something about it.